You're right there.
Yeah, he's drinking decaf tea. That's the problem. Goes down in my estimation today.
I need something to. Well, I can't. If I drink drink full fat tea, I'll not sleep.
I'm the same. I can't. I can't have caffeine after 3. I'm getting to the point where no caffeine after midday now.
Jesus, I'm not that bad. Last cup of tea I had was about 4 o'clock, so that's all right. But still, the problem is if I drink tea all day, I piss like an incontinent racehorse. It's just not good.
So I thought we'd finished all the tea talk in the preamble, but no,
Definitely not.
We still more
still
going.
This is extended Easter egg material.
We could do an entire podcast on tea.
The tea corner. Yeah.
It would get quite heated, though. I don't think we could possibly agree on the situation.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, we've already disagreed on caffeine or not caffeine.
I mean, given the choice, I'd have caffeine, but I'd like some sleep.
It's not a choice.
No,
Right, okay.
This has been forced upon me by my age.
By your middle-agedness.
Oh dear. Just never have a decaf tea.
No, it's just wrong. They smell
Same
funny.
with decaf coffee. I just don't want decaf.
No, decaf coffee's pointless because why would you have coffee unless you wanted to be slapped around the face awake? You have coffee because it has caffeine in it. Decaf coffee is a waste of time. It's like a condom machine in the Vatican. There's no point.
Oh dear.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Cast episode 134. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Rory Summers.
I'm Sid Gill.
Yeah, why would you do that? I'm not going to fall for it. I am Rory Babyface Summers, okay?
Babyface Summers.
Babyface Summers. Yes, I've shaved my beard and taken approximately 20 years off my appearance. I've also got a new floppy haircut as well. So.
And a small white dog so you can go around solving mysteries.
It's the Tintin Tang.
Well, Andy, you are Captain Haddock.
Well, that is true. That is true. That has been levied at me before, shall I?
It's not just been levied at you, mate. We've got an entire line of beers that you're brewing in
true.
your Captain Haddock's brewery.
There's been photoshops. There have been
We have a
rippings at the
pump clip
pub.
for most of our beers with Captain Haddock on them already. I need to find them at some point again, actually.
Yeah. Does that mean me and Sid are the Thompson twins?
Oh,
I could look good in a bowler hat.
With an appropriate level of competence, definitely, yes. You're not Professor Calculus. You're not that mad.
oh, see, I just don't remember any of the Tintin characters. I got Tintin. I don't even know the name of his dog.
Snowy.
Snowy.
Okay,
Hence the little white dog.
Now you say it, it's quite obvious, but no, I don't.
Moving on.
Showing my age, I don't know Tintin. There we go, I'm that young.
That is an excuse. It was in the 20s or something, wasn't it? Hershey's been around a while.
But you've lost your powers because you shaved your beard off.
I have shaved my beard off, yeah. I did do the obligatory moustache photo, though. Which
It was a good photo, I must admit. I missed you not doing was the old Sanchez one. Because you could have done you could have had the old handlebar across.
could have done it in stages. Should have done it in stages. Yeah. Full
Could have
beard to
done.
goatee, Sanchez, moustache, gone. Yeah.
That's
There you
it.
go, mate.
Do what I did last time I shaved off my beard and go for the full monkey tail.
What's a monkey tail?
It kind of starts at one side of your face and wraps all the way around, so it goes into your beard. So you have
Right.
nothing on one side and like full on the other, and it wraps around, and it
Fair
looks
enough.
ridiculous.
Right.
It does. I remember that photograph. It does look ridiculous.
It was a bet.
All right. Well, we finished our
Anyway.
shaving tips. Who's got some board game related information to disperse?
No bullseye jokes. In the near future, Mr. Gill and myself will be venturing up north.
Yes.
The 25th
yes, we will.
of August. They are you smirking bastards. The 25th of August in Perth, in the DWAL Centre.
The Dewar Centre to everybody
The
else.
Dewar Centre, yes. Sorry, that's an ongoing joke because Alora can't pronounce it properly. It is Tabletop, Scotland, which is excellent. Sid and I went last year with Alora and a couple of other folk who were there, and we thoroughly enjoyed it.
We did. So much so we're desperate to go again.
Indeed we are. It's only 2 days, isn't it? I think there
3
might be
days.
stuff on the Friday night, but is it the 3 days this year?
Yeah, 25, 26, 27th.
There we go. You've done your research.
I've tried.
You've tried.
Mostly because this year I would really like to try some RPGing out. Because that looks like good fun, and I want to make sure I get booked in early enough.
That's not a bad idea.
So what have they got going on RPGs? What's tickling your fancy there, Sid?
Well, now, I was looking at this earlier. They're doing quite a bit. D&D's, of course, there. I think last year they had like a competitive D&D thing going on, if I recall correctly.
It was... I don't know if it was competitive or not, but they had like kind of like I think it was a 6-table concurrent adventure. So there were 6 parties all doing the same adventure, and they threw in like grenades every now and again.
Didn't
So
one
each
party could impact the other tables or
each
something
party.
like that?
So it was almost like the thing we did with Steve many years ago, where we had the 2 parties, and every now and again, Arrakis was called a variety of pretty words by the cleric
Champions of
in
Chance,
your
yeah.
party. Yes. So I got them arrested, which was nice. And it's things like that. So you can they could interact. So I don't know what they've got planned this year, but
I mean, there's loads. I mean, there's so much. I mean, there's an entire floor dedicated to it if it's the same as last year. 2 or 3 big, huge rooms just to people playing roleplay.
yes,
And there's a Coriolis sessions. There's Blade Runner.
ooh,
There's some Cthulhu stuff going on. Lightless Beacon, which is one we've done.
Mhm.
which was
I remember that. Didn't we push a few
good
people
bit of
off the
fun.
top of a lighthouse?
We did. We threw some weird fish folk off the top of the lighthouse, saved ourselves. There's a lot of old stuff. Travelers in there. Gumshoe.
Gumshoe.
Yeah.
Gumshoe's really good, actually.
Yeah.
Sounds
Pathfinder 2E.
excellent.
We so yeah, there's loads. I mean, they're just spread out across the entire weekend. You can book on the website. June, if we want to have a punt at June, it's all there. So yeah,
We
I'm
do enjoy
going to
that,
be I'm going to be picking something out of that lot this year because I think I want to give it a punt. But yeah, that's only part of the show. I mean, there's open gaming, lots of open gaming with really nice, comfortable, wide aisles.
That's true. We did notice that last time. There was plenty of space, and it's deliberately so. So we're not going to be packed in like sardines. There is room to manoeuvre. Plenty of space. You're not too crammed in. It's quite nice. Very, very pleasant.
There'll be a
Yeah,
few.
we had a demo last year as well, didn't we? Of some dungeon crawler that we played.
Oh yes, we did.
that I
Yeah,
can't remember
like
the name
a
of.
medieval Midgard type thing or something.
Yes, but it was.
Obviously left a lasting
Determinate.
impression on you.
We found it's lacking. I'm not going to lie.
Yes, I remember the discussion about it.
Yes, it was a nice idea, but it just didn't seem to work. But
Speaking of dungeon crawling,
that was a nice segue. I see where you're going here.
Baldur's Gate 3 got released last week,
Yes, it
Properly
did.
this time.
properly this time, and dear gods, that's one hell of a video game.
It's pretty good.
I can't believe the kind of craziness that this game is. So, for those who don't know, Baldur's, it's called Baldur's Gate 3, and apparently the story relates to Baldur's Gate 3, but in reality, it's more like Divinity Sin 3, because Larian Studios have made the Divinity Sin games, and it's basically that engine, but with the D&D 5th edition rules, and you can make every single character that's possible from the player's handbook at the moment, with rumours about loads of extras, and it's it's the nearest. We had a question a while back about which board game feels like an RPG,
Yes.
but this is definitely the closest a video game has come to playing a real RPG.
True.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Because the
Yeah. The dialogue trees are incredibly deep, like to the point of insanity, but also there are permanent options. So if you do something and you fail the roll, it's almost like a free league game. You get one go and that's it. I mean, you could nerf your save, and reload.
Yeah.
But but otherwise, basically, if you're playing it properly, then you only get like one chance at doing one thing. If you failed the roll, because certain options in your in the chat will rely on certain abilities, so persuasion or dexterity or whatever it is. Like you might be, Baldurian, might know something from the city of Baldur's Gate, or you might be, a tiefling. If you're talking to a tiefling, it might be relevant. So you can use those certain things as well. But if you choose one that relies on a skill, it'll give you a roll. So you may or may not pass it. So it might influence what you say, which influences the outcome of the conversation, which might give some of the characters you're with approval or disapproval. You can piss your comrades off, which is quite fun.
It's full of really neat details as well. Like, for instance, you can use the Speak with Animals spell because that's in D&D. So every single animal in the game has a dialogue tree, and they're all different.
Wow. That's quite impressive.
It is a thing to behold. It really is. Not had anywhere near as much time as I'd like to play it, but what I've played of it so far has been extraordinary.
Did you play the alpha, Steve?
I did, and I got to a point where I got horribly killed, and I kind of decided that I don't know how much. At the time, it thought the result release was going to be like a year away. So I kept thinking I don't want to play too much because otherwise I'm just going to be going over things again. And ended up it was 3 years away, so I should have played it then and gone down a lot of avenues.
I kind of did the same thing. I got stuck in Thunderdark, and I got horribly mauled and decided, no, I'm going to wait. And decided not. But I mean, I played the alpha a reasonable amount, but again, I'm even in the new release now, they've changed a few things. If you've played the alpha and you haven't yet gone for the full game, there are slight differences as you go along. So, I mean, even if you can remember 2 years ago, if you haven't played it since then, there are differences. But it's very well made, very well put together. I'd recommend using Vulkan instead of D3D for the technologically minded of you, just because I've had a few issues with D3D. It's crashing, and some of the textures don't look right, whereas Vulkan seems to be much, much more capable. But it's really good. It's really addictive. It's just, it's the, I just want to go around this corner. Oh, what's in this building? Or what's in this pub? Oh, I'll just go and do this more small quest, which then opens 15 more, which is absolutely fantastic. So there are many, many, many threads. There are loads of character interactions, loads of arguments within the party. So it's as if they've taken Baldur's Gate 2 with all those sort of character interactions and something like Dragon Age, where there were quite a few character interactions, sort of mashed them together and they've sort of bred. And that's kind of what it's like. But it's an interesting plot to start with. So there's lots to do. All the character options are there. They've nerfed some of the spells, but only because they fit better into a video game now than, say, the spells from the RPG. Because this is kind of an ongoing thing, unless you're in combat, obviously it's turn-based. Some of the spells don't really work in real time, if that makes sense. But they've changed them appropriately for the game. It's not as if the spells are broken. It's just they've been adjusted slightly. They've adjusted some of the abilities on some of the characters as well. I've noticed. Not a massive amount, but again, I think just to fit the real-time nature of the game. Yeah, that's all. But it is highly recommended. It is also massive, to the tune of 125 gig.
Yeah, it's not a small area of your hard drive. That's taking up some serious hard drive real estate.
Yes, it is. And it's not all graphics. I mean, it's a very pretty game, but obviously most of it will be dialogue, I'd imagine.
What's this going to do then for the uptake of role-playing games? Real ones?
That's an excellent question, Mr. Gill.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people will go out and buy the Player's Handbook if they're a video game player players, because it is, as I said, Andy says, there's some tweaks, but it's the D&D rules. You do a skill check, it shows you your rolls, it shows a D20 being rolled on the page. You get success or failure. Your full stats. I mean, there's some things which, again, feel like they've come across from Divinity. So there's a couple of rules which don't exist in RPGs, like you get height advantage, which is a Larian thing, because, of course, the maps you're playing a video game, maps are all like massively 3D now. So you've got, kicking someone off the edge of a cliff is enormous fun.
I did that with a knoll last night or the night before. I was like, I could hit you with a sword or boot, and it worked. It just fell down a hole. Oh, score.
But I do want there was a while ago, actually, Sid, when we were talking about the OGL stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And you reckoned that the release of the film would mean that the OGL stuff would get forgotten about.
Yeah.
I think you were right, but it's the release of this game, not the film.
Oh, okay. So
this is huge. They reckon there was 700,000 people playing on Steam on the first weekend.
Wow.
I can believe that.
And it's available on GOG as well. So you could say, I don't know, there's probably at least another 10% have bought it on GOG.
Well, this can only be a good thing. It has my full support. You guys carry on playing it, and I'll live vicariously through you.
It is very good because John's playing it as well. So at least the three of us are playing it. I don't know if any other the other members are playing it.
Yeah, a few others
Paul's
are playing
it as well.
Paul's playing as well, yeah.
So
I think everyone has made their character from a certain campaign as well. So John is playing the Bard character from the campaign he played with you, Rory. Andy is playing Arrakis, no doubt.
Hell yeah.
I know Paul couldn't make his character because he couldn't get the
Couldn't get an
Asimar.
No,
Asimar.
Yeah, no Senza.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
So
I think he's gone as close as he can, though, with the characters that he is allowed to work with.
yeah.
It's great. And it's not as if, because one of the things I found with Baldur's Gate 1, and to a lesser extent 2, I found it was extremely difficult to play as a magic chucker, because those games were very combat heavy and basically sort of big sticks combat heavy, whereas Baldur's Gate 3, so far, because I've played it as a sort of a big stick wielder, and I'm now playing it as a sorcerer, and I am finding it just as flexible. I mean, because right at the start of the game, there is a lot of people that you will collect, and it seems to allow a balanced party depending on how you put it together, which I think is great.
Well, one of the issues to the original Baldur's Gate was if you, the main character, died, it was game over, regardless of whether you had like reviving potions or anything, which meant that you played a wizard, you started off with like 2 hit points, and the first goblin that came up to you and looked at you in a funny way killed you.
That's true. Yes, it's true.
I remember like that was AD&D 2nd edition rules where like wizards started with 1 to 4 hit points.
And now they start with 5 to 6.
Yes.
They're still squishy.
Oh, and they had 1 spell, and he spent the rest of the combat just throwing darts at people.
Yes, yeah. I do like the idea of cantrips, actually, for a 5th edition. That's actually quite a welcome change, so that it allows wizards to be not quite as crap when they've run out of, the really sort of hefty spells. They're still doing something, even though it's not a huge amount of damage, but it can be quite useful, which is nice. But that's obviously less the video game. That's just the general rule set. But yes, strongly recommended so far. I think each of us that have all been playing it has now played it probably somewhere between 2 and 5 or 6 hours. So we're all at various stages of it. But I think we've barely scratched the surface at this point. I think most of us have got to about level 3, maybe 4 so far, depending on who's been playing it. And so far there's been tons to do, tons to see. And of course, it's completely open world, so you can go wherever you like, poke certain things, which may or may not be to your advantage. Like, for example, falling down a hole into a crypt and discovering a bunch of bandits. Oops. But it is fun. Speaking of falling down holes, Mr. Tudor, Voidfall.
Right.
That's a very deep hole.
So yeah, Voidfall arrived, but again, I've had a Kickstarter before you because I went for the basic backing and you went for the when you went the Super Deluxe. So in the last episode, I had a bit of a rant about Castle Burgundy, didn't I?
You did.
Previous episode.
The last 2, I think, as well.
Yes. Because there was no way of working out what went in the box. Well, Voidfall turns up. It's a huge box from Mindclash Games, and this came with instructions. It came with 6 pages of instructions on how to pack it into the box.
See?
6 pages.
Mindclash don't mess around.
Do you need those pages handy every time you want to put the game away, though? Or is it quite intuitive once you've done it?
It's all right. I was round his house the weekend. They're on his fridge, laminated.
If it's anything like Perseverance and Anachrony, no, Rory. Most of it, once it's in the little sort of boxes, it's mostly okay, and you can just kind of get. It's almost like what game trays do. It's like here, one player you have this stuff, one player you have this stuff, which is quite good.
Yeah, so a lot of it is like this sits in the middle of the table, which is your counters, and that's a good one actually. You usually get like a little tray with counters. There's 2, so you can put them on either end of the board, so you don't have to reach over and mix the
that's nice.
And of course, you get your player counters and things like that. But yeah, it's the stacking I'd need the diagram for. There's a particular way of stacking things in. It's like I've got the folded space insert for Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
And I need the instructions to put that back in the box every single time because there is a right way to stack everything. Otherwise, no chance.
Yeah.
Or big pile of baggies. Job done. He's just shuddered. I see.
No.
Oh, it's fine. All works perfectly well. All the minis go in the wee boxes. All the gribblies go in the sort of standees go in all the wee bags. Problem solved. Done.
Andy arguing for less bling.
It's
Is
unnecessary.
that really him?
This is the man who has the Insert of Choice Award every year
It
as
is,
well.
yes, rather ironically.
And he's arguing for not an insert.
I don't need one.
So basically, your Insert of Choice Award should be baggies every year.
To be fair, I did argue for the Terra Mystica thing last year because they have a little sticker on each little baggie to tell you what's supposed to go in it from each expansion. but I disqualified it because it wasn't technically an insert. So, it almost qualified. So,
Well, one game that didn't have an insert and definitely came in lots of baggies was the game me and Rory played just last night.
In fact, last night, yeah.
Which is Merv, which I believe is not the full name. Is it Merv?
Merv, the Heart of the Silk Road. By Fabio Lopiano and published by Osprey Games.
Isn't the Silk Road the part of the dark web where you buy drugs?
I wouldn't know.
No,
I mean, neither do I, really.
That's a different thing, mate.
That's okay.
I think that's a different Silk Road, yeah. I don't think Marco Polo was trying to buy drugs here and he met the gun.
Well, maybe he was. I don't know.
I mean, I think the
Yeah,
spice...
probably was,
I know.
actually. Yeah,
Opium was big back then, man.
Yeah,
I was going to
true.
say, I think
No,
the spices
you're
it moves along the new Silk Road are quite different.
right. Yes.
Anyway, not drugs, but Merv.
Merv, yes. So, this is a very Euro game. Now, the designer, which I've already forgotten the name of,
Fabio.
You said Fabio, is also the designer of Ragusa. And I think that's important to keep in mind because Ragusa is a Euro game that works very different from most of the Euro games, yeah?
Yeah. Also same designer as Autobahn.
So Merv is is really intriguing. So you've got your typical Eurogame accoutrement, shall we say.
Yeah.
There's a track to go up, which is the mosque track.
Yeah.
Which gets you stuff and you go up it.
Do like a good track.
You've got cards you can collect. Cards you can collect and you get points for having sets of 4 different cards. You've got goods and contracts. Get victory points for filling contracts. Get victory points for collecting scrolls and goods and establishing trade routes, which again, accoutrements, little areas around the area outside of the board. So far, so typical Eurogame. The really interesting bit is the bit in which how you do this. And what you have is you have a 5x5 grid, which has 25 random tiles, actually 24 random tiles, and a camel space in the middle. And you will have your meeples, and in each turn, you will select one of the columns and then activate a space in that column. Now, that is 2 things. It determines what resources you're going to get, but it's also your action. So it's like a worker placement. Pick a column, pick a tile, go down the column, pick a tile, that's your action.
Yeah.
However, when you do that, you also put a building on there. And if you pick a tile, you get the resources from every tile on that row or column that has the same colour building as the action space you've just selected.
So as the game progresses and more players are getting more buildings down in rows, in lines, if Steve then comes along to the row and activates one of my buildings, he gets resources from every one on that row that is my colour.
So hang on. So is it a shared 5x5 or does everyone have their own
shared
5x5?
Shared 5x5.
That is, it is,
I
and
see.
that is Merv. It is the city.
So what happens is you have 4 rounds to each turn, or turns to each round, I can never remember which way it is, because you go along, you start at the top right, top left, and you go along the top, down the side, along the bottom, up the side. So you have 4 times you can place. And you place in like turn order. So as I said, when you start, there's no buildings on, you'll get 1 cube, you'll take 1 action. But as the game progresses, there'll be more buildings on there, which means you've got to be a bit more tactful about where you go. Also, because the board is completely randomized, you may not have the action spaces you want to take. So you might want to go up the mosque track, but you'll find out that, well, you're last in turn order and the 2 rows you can go to don't have the mosque action. So you're going to have to go somewhere else and do something else. What's really interesting then is when you come to the end and you sort out turn order for the next little round, it goes in the order in which they are kind of as placed. So if you go for one of the first spots, you end up going low in the turn order. But you can spend resources, which are camels, to go further up. And basically it means this turn order is constantly changing as people are adjusting where they are, the location along the thing, and how many camels they've got.
And you're actually kind of fighting for turn order as well.
Yeah.
There are quite a lot of times where I'm going to go 4th, but I don't want to go 4th. So I place a camel here and a camel there, and now I'm going to go 2nd. And no one else can stop me doing that. I'm going to go for 2nd. So then when Steve comes along and goes, well, I'm now going 4th, I'll go 4th, but I'll pick up a camel. I'm quite happy with picking up a camel.
What do camels get you other than to buy turn order?
Lots of things. You can spend the camel market to get extra stuff, or you can place them on the spice road track to actually move you further left. Yeah, I said a resource to begin with, which the resource is camels. But yeah, you've got camels, cubes, goods. I said it's Eurogame. There's a dozen different
loads of different
things
things,
to juggle. What also happens is you can build walls and you can put soldiers on your houses. Once you come to the end of the second turn, of which there's only 3 turns, the Mongols attack.
Oh.
And they come in from every single facing around this 5x5 grid. Yeah. And they will destroy the first 2 buildings in every row or column unless there's either a wall protecting them or a soldier protecting them or the owner of the building wants to pay a ransom.
And that ransom is the resource that you've generated, but resources are really, really tight in this game. So chances are you're not going to have a lot of them to pay your ransoms.
You can't throw camels at them then?
No. So we found that at the end of the second year, whether we didn't have a lot of walls, what was the city was looking quite built up and we had lots of buildings on it. All of a sudden, it just got cleared out.
No walls.
Which really then massively affected how we had handled year 2 because all of a sudden there were now open spaces where before I had 3 buildings in this row. I now don't. I only have 1 because I was only able to save one of them, which means other people can come in and start monopolising on where I was.
So there is an element of strategy in not building a wall, for example, because you could clear out your opponent.
It's really clever that you're actually incentivized to build walls that defend your opponent's properties. So whenever you build a wall, it's going to protect 2 buildings, and the same with a soldier. If I protect my own thing, I'll get 1 influence point. But if I protect yours, Andy, I'll get 2.
And rightly so.
So I can, if I wanted to, I could build walls just to defend everybody else's buildings, which allows me to shoot up the influence track. And by shooting up the influence track, that allows me to get more loyalty and access greater contracts. And there's all these tracks. And just by doing well on any of them is this massive boon.
Now, I do like a game with a lot of tracks in it.
The other interesting track is the bottom track, which is the council of
it was the palace where you're going to put your viziers, I think.
The interesting thing about that is you score points. You have to put workers into one of the 4 scoring pots. So you have to spend resources to put workers into the spots to score points at all. So, there's 4 different scoring categories, and to actually activate any of them, you have to spend resources. But then you have to go up this track along the bottom of there, and then when you score, you reduce along this track, which means you've got to keep an eye on that you're far enough along this track to score points. Like Rory, for instance, at the end of one turn went, and I'm going to score, oh my God, I forgot to go up that track, so I'm not going to score any points this round at all.
I spunked a load of resources to get 2 of these viziers in for I'll score 1 point for every card I had. At this point I had a few cards. I put 2 viziers in there, so I'm double downing on it. But I only had enough favour that only one of them could actually do anything. And by the time I realised this, it was too late. So I was like, wow, I've wasted the last 3 turns preparing for this plan, and I can't actually monopolise on it.
Was that shortly before the time Steve sent me the message in our group? Rory is shit.
Right, I don't want to be too mean, but I'm going to be. Your scoring goes around the board. Yeah, okay. This is the first game for most of us.
For everyone, that was everyone's first game.
Oh, the 2 guys who won had got onto the 4th section. I'd got onto the 3rd section of the board, and Rory had just got across the first corner.
Yeah.
So basically. Rory had limped over 25 points, and the winners were over 75 points.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I did. I didn't do terribly well in that game. And I think I said during the game, actually, I think if I played it again, I don't think I'd necessarily be any better at it.
You've said that before. We've played a game where you got thoroughly spanked as well and said, I wouldn't do any better.
And did I? Did I in the subsequent game?
I don't think we have actually resolved that issue. So I can't even remember what game it was, but I know it was a Euro, and I think Alora was playing as well. And obviously she beat both of us.
That might be in Woodcraft actually, but yeah.
It might have been Woodcraft. Maybe I can't remember. Anyway, it would appear that you are true to form, at least, sir.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Lewis, I think this game is your kind of cheese.
It really does sound like a nice slab of Gouda, as it were. I mean, you're ticking all the boxes, mate. You've got multiple resources, a plethora of tracks. I do like a good temple track, I'm not going to lie.
It's art by Ian O'Toole.
Win.
Right, so it looks beautiful on the table. It's all got these wonderful wooden components. I think there's clearly different strategies on how you win. And
Excellent.
I think they can change quite significantly with every game setup because Merv, your 5x5 grid, is radically different every time you play.
So is it literally just 24
It's
tiles
24
you shuffle
tiles
and just
you
deal
just
out?
shuffle and throw out.
Yeah, sure.
And those are all the buildings, all the colours, all the resources. But where they go will massively change the dynamic of every game.
I'm liking the sound of this. We should definitely have a game.
Its restrictions are quite interesting as well because you go around the board 4 times, 3 years, there are only 12 actions in the entire game.
Oh.
So there's a definite kind of, oh crap, I can't dawdle here. I need to make every action count.
So it's kind of like Tekkenu in that sense, where I think you get 16 goes in that. I mean, this is 12, so that's quite restrictive.
It is.
It is. And I would say that I do have a little bit of a, I'm not sure if it's a complaint, but more of a, I can see where this may cause issues. Because the way the turn order goes, although as we said we can influence the turn order, you don't know which row or column you're going to be able to go on if you're further down the turn order. This makes it really difficult to plan. So what happens is, like for instance, I wanted to go to the market because I wanted to get goods to fulfill a contract. It meant that I know I wanted to go to a market, but like 2 turns, I didn't have a chance because I was too far down the turn order. And then I realised basically I'm going to have to throw camels at this problem until it goes away so I can get further at the turn order. But there is I wouldn't say it slows the game down, but if you've got like people who want to overthink it, you may find it stalling a little bit because they have to rethink about what they want to do at the start of every round, which you do a lot of these little rounds.
Yeah, you cannot plan your turn until the 3 people in front of you have done theirs.
Till you're on yours, okay.
You can have an idea. Yeah, go for it.
Plan. That's play with your gut. Bang, bang, bang. That'll do.
You're at that point when you kind of go, right, if I could just get 1 scroll, I can fulfill that contract there. I can't get to a scroll action space at all. Or I can. It's the most suboptimal move in that row because there's only 1 building in that colour on that one.
But God damn it, I'm doing it. Wallop.
Yeah. And we're all doing that. The thing I found really interesting about this, or quite fascinating about it, is the time it took us to play it. Now, on Board Game Geek, this is a weight of 3.46. And there's
entry level.
Right, so there's a lot of choices in this. There's a lot of strategies. But we played year 1 in half an hour. And we played year 2 in 45 minutes. And then we played year 3 in just under an hour. So we played the whole game.
2 hours, give or take.
We played the whole thing in about 2 hours.
In 2 hours. And we all knew the rules because it was a strategy night at my games club. So it was go away, watch a rules video. Paul Grogan, great work. So everybody sat down and knew what they were
Congratulations to him,
doing.
by the way. He's just got married.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes. Yeah. So there was no teach, but all 4 of us just sat down and you just got on with it.
Nice.
Although the complexity does build in each subsequent year, you're more familiar with what all the actions do, all the options, and what your potential strategy is going to be. So as the game gets more complicated, you've got a clearer lens through which to look at it.
That's a very eloquent way of putting it, Mr.
Thank you,
Summers.
mate. Yeah, that might have to go in a written review, actually. That's quite nice.
That's lovely, yes. There you go. I like it. That sounds good. And 3 point, I was expecting it to be heavier than that, but 3.4 is kind of viticulture kind of level. It's sort of
Is
euphoria. Yeah. Viticulture's only about 3.5, maybe 3. It's not heavy.
Yeah, it's not that much heavier. It's not a super heavy Euro. We're not talking Vidal Serda kind of level.
I'm not interested in. Actually, speaking of which, Alora and I played Kanban EV for the 2nd time last night, just as an aside, and there's a lot to that. I'm not going to lie.
There's a lot to
that.
Well, on the subject of 2 players, Steve and I were talking about this. I think Merv, I don't think it's going to work very well at 2 players. Well, we've only played it once, and we played it at 4 players. But at 4 players, it just sang. It was great. And I think it would do well at 3 as well. But at 2, there is a rule for playing at 2 players where you have this extra master builder come on to take up working slots. But I think that's... You want that dynamism of 3 players at least.
Sure. I assume that the master builder is kind of pseudo-random.
So the Master Builders is like essentially your main worker that tracks around the board.
Right. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it puts that in, I believe, the lower player counts. Andy, you've sent me down a bloody BGG weight rabbit hole now.
I'm sure Vertical is about 3.5.
Well, brass is 3.8.
Wow. Well, the brass isn't that heavy.
And Pandemic Legacy is 2.8, which I think that gives you a good
Okay.
thing of where they think the weight sits on these kind of things. So, yeah.
Okay. A little bit
Arc
lighter.
Nova 3.7. Yeah, maybe a little bit lighter than Arc Nova.
Okay. I'd say I think I've played Arc Nova a lot, so it's quite hard for me to feel Arc Nova's quite heavy now. So I just because when you build that such familiarity with the game, I mean, it doesn't excuse why I'm still shit at it, but I'm very familiar with being shit at Arc Nova now,
And indeed other games.
and most games, to be honest.
Of course, he has no idea how he'd play better next time either.
No, indeed. No.
But I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna enjoy it because ultimately I really enjoyed this game. I got this on the math trade. I jettisoned Woodcraft, got in Merv, and for me this is a 2 thumbs up win.
Nice. Bring it over. Let's play.
Let's do it.
Sounds good. On the subject of really heavy games, I brought Agra to my Thursday night board gaming group last week, and
Brave man.
it was an experience for them. Let's put it that
Say,
way.
didn't they usually play like Space Base?
They've moved on, thankfully, from that. Although it is, mentioned from time to time, much to my consternation. But I thought, do you know what? I'm fed up for playing sort of light to medium weight games. I'm going to bring something with a bit of chunk now because Alora wasn't around to stop me, so I. So I thought, right, I'm going to chance my. Basically, I wanted to see what they can cope with. So we can bring maybe slightly bigger variation of games, maybe throw in the odd Lacerda now and again if we're feeling sassy, etc., etc.
So it's like a control, like sine wave kind of thing.
Yes.
You've done the low, you've done the high, and now you're trying to narrow
exactly.
your field.
It's kind of an
Yeah,
iterative process. You're trying to find the level. Obviously, different people like different things. But to be fair, the two ladies I was playing with did very, very well. It broke them. I'm not going to lie. We got to sort of 9:30, 10 o'clock, and one of my friends, Leah, was like, I just want to go home now. Are we finished, please? She was a broken woman. Bless her. But she did well. But yes, Agra is heavy. Bloody good. Far too large for what it is, but it's an excellent game, and it really, really works well. Because I've never played it, I think, as a 4-player, oddly. I've only ever played it as a 2 or 3, but I would like to play it as a 4. Because it would work better. Like again, you've sort of suggested with Merv, you have that wonderful player interaction with Agra because you can boot workers off, and the more players are in there doing things, and the more stuff gets sort of thrown around. But yes, I like the sound of Merv. Bring it on with crackers.
Will do. I can't wait to play it again.
Mr. Gill,
Mr. Tudor.
would you like to explain yourself? No. Would you like to talk to us about Sleeping Gods?
I can certainly mention it because it's been in my head for several days now, driving me crazy. So I went to the boss's house at the weekend to continue our game that we started a few weeks ago now, a few months ago maybe even, of Sleeping Gods, which, I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of pick your own adventure kind of game almost, as you wander around a map in a little ship, and you make kind of landfall at various places, a little icons on the map, and then you go to your little rule book and you read a little chapter out. I mean, there's a bit of game before that, but forget about that. The exciting bit was the book. But no, in seriousness.
Actually, it's interesting you say that because the game has every person's turn has 3 stages, which is 1, manage the ship, which is like a worker placement area where you go to the ship and you get resources. Then you do a random event. Then you do your actual event, which is usually exploration, move the ship, go to port, go to the market. Every single person, apart from me, skipped the ship action because they just wanted to get to moving and exploring and reading from the book and the exciting stories. Every time I had to keep saying, no, you have to do ship action first.
Somebody just put a game in the way of a bloody good story, as far as I'm concerned.
How very dare they?
I am being a little bit facetious. The game part is very, very interesting as well, and it is as Steve says, you got these 3 actions. You got the little worker placement. Send your little. Everybody gets to move this chap around to one of 5 spaces, I think, where you can, perform an action, get some cards, which give you like a benefit. You can upgrade your player characters, that kind of stuff, or you can clear off some resources from things that you've used up or cards that you've used on the board that are there. Heal, that kind of stuff. Basic stuff, right? Keeps your characters alive. And then you do the random event, which is always bad, as far as I'm concerned. Nothing good comes from turning those cards. Yeah, they're supposed
to be easy, medium, and hard, but they just seem to be bad. Worse, and really terrible.
It sounds like Alien and A Glorious Day in the Core. 1, 2, and 3 blobs for severity of massacre.
Yeah. But that event, this event stack is effectively a timer. So the game's played in 3 acts, for want of a better word.
Yeah, I'd use word act, yeah.
And each act is made up of a stack of these cards of, 15 or something, is it?
It's 18 cards. 6 of each, yeah.
Yeah, 6 of each kind of hard, really shit, and just game over kind of cards.
Catastrophic.
Yeah. And it's a really nice mechanic in the game, actually, where you can't, in normal mode, you can't really die. So you've got combat scenarios that when you do your explore action or you're traveling or these events come up, you can take injuries to your crew, or in combat you can get killed or knocked unconscious or whatever. But in a normal mode of the game, that just means that you accelerate the clock and it lets you kind of reset yourself. So if your ship gets completely damaged, for example, as you're traveling around, what'll happen is say, right, take your ship, move it to the nearest port, and advance this event deck 6 cards. So just burn the top 6 cards. So if you're quite early on, it'll get rid of all the nice cards and give you the really bad ones. But if you're towards the end, you can just skips you to the big bad guy at the end of the act, kind of end of level boss. You can play in brutal mode, but frankly, why? That's not the point of this game. It's just silly.
That's not the point of this story.
Well, that just means you don't get more reading of the book, which is the main point of this game, as far as I'm concerned. But no, I mean, it's an absolute gem of a game. Really is an absolute gem of a game. It's the thing that's really clever about it is it's a really interesting story, and I didn't really realize how intricate and in-depth it was. I think I made the realization at the end of our game on Sunday when I went, oh my god, that's all joined together, and it's just really, really clever little game. But like the little quests you get all stack up and make the story even more juicy as you go through the 3 acts. It's lovely.
This sounds remarkably reminiscent of Tainted Grail.
I was wondering when you were going to mention it.
I see, there you go.
Yeah. It is, I would class this in the same genre as Tainted Grail.
Okay.
So exploration on a board, whereas Tainted Grail you lay out cards. This has a ring bind, one of those like flippy over ring binders. The difference is in Tainted Grail you all go and scatter to the 9 vectors of your own volition. On this one you're all on the ship together, so you will explore things together as a group. But yes, you go to somewhere, you go to the book, you read the thing, you get some options, you follow those options. It's got combat in it, so it's got the same kind of thing. The combat works in 2 completely different ways, but every so often you will have to fight a monster. The main differences, there are differences in theme. So, for instance, Tainted Grail is very grimdark. It's all very dark. It's all very muted and grim, and everything's got teeth and gribbliness and muted colours, whereas Sleeping Gods is definitely primary colours. Someone has opened up the entire collection of paints rather than just
brown and
greys and browns. Yeah. The other thing I would say is I'd say both of them are like going to school, right? But Sleeping Gods is not easy, not by a long stretch. But it feels like at the same time teachers there to guide you and help you.
Oh.
Whereas Tainted Grail feels like bullies picked on you on the way there, beat you up and stole your lunch money, and then you just had 7 periods of PE.
It's an interesting analogy.
In most of the scenarios, it would not have been PE that everybody hated, but of course, we're all board gamers, so we're all like being stationary. Normally, it'd be like 7 periods of maths or science in any other situation, but no, 7 periods of maths. Sign me up.
I was about to do that because my brain went physics. It's like, no,
I like that. I like that. Which one didn't I like? Hands up, I didn't like PE either. I was so glad when I ended up with physiotherapy after I damaged my knee. I was having a water fight with my brother and jumped down the stairs in my house because we were having the water fight indoors and landed on my knee and really damaged it. And because of that, I got out of all PE for the last 2 years of school.
Pro tip for anyone still at school.
But brilliant. That's it. I had physiotherapy and just didn't have to do PE ever. It was great. But I did have a question about Sleeping Gods, actually.
Yes.
So Sleeping Gods is obviously this campaign, legacy, ongoing story.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not legacy because you're not destroying anything, but it is this overrolling campaign.
Yeah. So this is the weird thing. You do one game, which as Sid said is 3 acts. Now this is not a short game, and there are everything in there to save it at any point you want. So there's a little sheet to help you save it. There's boxes to put things in to save it, and we played each act in about 4 hours an act.
Right.
We played it for nearly 8 hours on Sunday.
Jesus.
We stopped basically so I could walk the dog, and Amanda made a Sunday roast while I was walking the dog.
Nice.
We were even making bacon butties while the game was being played.
So you could,
kind of thing.
so you didn't have to stop to eat it.
Yeah.
But this is getting in light of kind of other campaign games that we've played. I'm thinking Kingdom Death Monster, Gloomhaven, Pandemic Legacy, where there's always been a struggle of getting people back to the table to play it. It sounds from what you're saying that actually the story in Sleeping Gods is really what's driving you to play it for 8 hours. That, you know, if there was an offer, do you want to come play games? Maybe we'll play Sleeping Gods. Definitely.
To put this into context, Amanda and Sue had arranged for them to come over for the day, and Amanda said, "Oh, we could play a couple of board games, and we could have Sunday lunch." And Sid went, "We're finishing Sleeping Gods."
Yeah.
I was quite pushy.
So you because of that story, you were driven to go back to it and carry on the campaign.
Yeah, because I'd played it a few months ago at Steve's. Absolutely loved it. I loved the feel of it. I wanted to know what happened with the story. I wanted to see, where we would end up with it. And then I went, do you know what? It's a kind of game where Sue would play it and she would enjoy because it's as Steve says, it's hard, but it feels like somebody's holding your hand a little bit. And the actual board game bit that gets you to the story is interesting enough in itself. The little event cards, the move your worker around and that kind of stuff. It all made sense and it clicked really quick. For Sue, it was really quick. And because she had like Steve and Amanda and myself around the table as well, and it was fully co-op, it's quite supportive. And she really enjoyed it, I think. I mean, the fact she played it for 8 hours was frankly monumental.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is brilliant.
So you said you could save it. Can you save like different games of it? So if you're playing it with Amanda, could you have like the save state for you and Amanda and then a save state for you and Sid?
You could, but it would be fast.
Okay.
Yeah, I was flicking through the rule book and it says you shouldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Is the official line on it.
It's one of those things, if you want to take enough notes, you could. But it makes, you're not supposed to repeat the event cards. So even when you reset the event cards to another 18, you're supposed to redraw from a new pile. You're not supposed to go and put things back in so that you get completely different events throughout the game. Okay. You should never have the same event card twice.
Depending on how your view on it is, it would, and I think I did remember reading this, you can add and remove players really easily.
Yeah, well, we went from 3 to 4 players because the first time it was just me, you, and Amanda.
Yeah, exactly.
The second time Sue joined us, so
you can lose
swapped
people.
Characters.
Yeah, you swap characters.
It didn't matter.
Move people around. It's a lovely game.
Yeah, you
really
can't do that with Tainted Grail. Once you're in,
no.
you are locked in with that character until it's grim inevitability death.
Yes. I'd also say as well, we've now played me and Amanda have now played the campaign twice.
Oh wow!
Okay,
that's just not that long then.
Well, I said it's about 12 hours. Yeah, 12 hours of gameplay to run the campaign.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we've played it twice.
Nice.
And there's an achievement sheet on the back of it, and we've ticked 10% of those boxes.
Oh, so still a lot to do then.
So there's still a lot to do, and it's weird because we've identified places on the map that we haven't been to, but we're like, that doesn't, the amount of areas on the map we haven't been to doesn't represent the amount of things we've missed.
Okay.
Which means we've barely scratched the surface.
We've not, because a lot of the places that you visit have got 5, 6, 7 different options within them,
Yeah.
depending on what what your previous game has been. It's branching, certainly.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I would say that it doesn't feel like there's a big plot pushing it forward, if that makes sense. There are definite points where you suddenly go, we're ran out of leads now, what we're going to do. But as Sid said, weirdly, you get to the end and you go, oh, that wasn't quite as disparate as I thought it was. Some of those, what I thought were separate threads, actually join up a little bit. But you're not playing it for the plot, if that makes sense. You're playing it for the adventure.
Right. So,
yeah.
On that note, then, if you've played it once or twice before, in your case, does your foreknowledge, if appropriate, of the game that you've played before affect a second or third or fourth playthrough?
Yes, it does, because you remember things.
Right.
And it's the game almost encourages you to work through that and do that.
Okay.
It actually says, because it gives you a map, it gives you your save sheet on the other side is the full map. And it says, make some notes on this. And Amanda's like,
She's got everything everywhere. Yeah.
Red string.
Different colours. Different colours, mate. All sorts.
And it does kind of encourage you to, because of the achievement system, it kind of encourages you to go back and look at different things because you've already unlocked these different magic items. So, we've got 5 magic items. There's another 90 magic items to find. It encourages you to go do different things each time.
So you're kind of like playing your choose your own adventure. You've kept your thumb in the book so you can go, no, we don't want to go that way. We'll go this way instead.
Well, it's not even that. I think I don't want to say too much because I don't want to ruin it for anyone that might go and play it. But I actually, having now played it and noticed a couple of points when we got to the end of our game, I think it's meant to let you remember. I think you remembering what you did in your last game is actually really important to the overall story.
Okay.
And there's a hint that may even be part of the plot.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
Yeah.
And I think,
isn't it? Well, you can't say what we need to say, unfortunately. But I think it is. I'm more, because I was thinking about this all the way home, Steve. That one quest card that we pulled, and then I randomly joined the dots in my head. I went, that's really important. That's why we need to remember what happened last time, so that when we go again, we can do different choices, or we can play through the game in a different way because we might spark a memory that we already did it one way before. I love that about it.
Sorry.
Go on. I was going to go on, Rory.
Sorry, I was really excited to ask this question. I do apologise. But what is the narrative behind playing subsequent games? Are you the same explorers going back out again to do another thing?
No, but without spoiling what Sid thinks he has stumbled on, it doesn't overtly say yet. You basically are starting just again. It's just a new game. So the story of the game is I think it's 1920s. You're the crew of a ship and you're heading to New York. And just before you get to New York, you get sucked into another dimension. So random place, no idea where you are, and you're exploring ground. And when you start again, you start exactly again and you're the same crew, same ship, portal to another dimension. But I said we don't want to talk too much about this because this is a spoiler.
Yeah. And it is kind of legacy like in the sense that you're not destroying bits as you go, but you are upgrading things. You are getting, I don't want to say like new rules, but you are getting upgrades to certain parts of your ability. You might start like the next time. So if the first time you play the game, you start with no quests in your hand. The second time, so when I played the first time with Steve and Amanda, because they'd already played once, we had like an upgraded port and a few starting quest cards in our hand. Now that we've finished again, we've gone given more starting kit, as it were.
It's designed to be played more than once. Okay.
And do you know what? The bloody thing makes you want to play it again. I'm now been looking at this game to buy this damn thing, to have it myself, to play even more.
You should.
More to the point. Next time Sue goes, I want to play a game. Steve, I'm coming to your house, we're getting it on the table, and we're playing it again. Nice. Because it is that good. It is wonderful.
It sounds almost like Majora's Mask, if you remember that on the N64.
I was thinking that as well, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, Majora's Mask. I don't know if you've played it. It's obviously the Zelda that was a sequel to Ocarina of Time, which you needed like the silly memory upgrade for. So I never actually got through it much. But it's on a time limit. You got like a certain amount of time to do something. But as long as you achieve something, like a major event, then it remembers it next time you restart the day. So eventually you go through the game that many times that you're eventually making progress each time. Okay.
I think that's a key part of this game. It wants you to play it again and again. It wants you to explore all the map. It wants you to poke it. It wants you to, and when you get to the end, I think I was reading I was doing the old reading bit for the end bit, and I noted there was like the finale had different chapter bits that you can read out, and I think there was at least 20 different end bits, and some of them were really short. Some of them were half a page. You're like, okay, there's quite a lot in this. There is a lot of this game that we haven't even seen. I think we concentrated our efforts in the kind of 4 or 5 pages of the map book, Steve, something like that.
Yeah.
And the map book had 20 odd pages, and then Steve's got an expansion sat on the side, and there's another Kickstarter coming out or finished and due to come out.
I was actually looking at that. Yeah, there's
standalone.
it's a completely new game based on the same mechanics, which you're a cargo plane that's gone through into the same dimension. So it's called Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. And I'm just having a look to see if I can work out when I'm going to get that, because I'm just now really excited about getting it.
I mean, I do have to say I'm a bit infuriated by it as well, because of how much brain space it's taken up and how much it's made me think about it. Especially the fact that there was a couple of quests which I think randomly Steve went the other day, it was a pillar, not a tower. It was there's little things that you got this map in front
there's
of you.
interpretation. It's one of those things you've got to interpret it right as well. Somebody, a character will say something to you, and it's like, do they mean X or do they mean Y? And you've got to think about that.
Yeah,
it's interesting actually, Andy. I did try and actually, after we'd played Sleeping Gods with Sid the last time he came over, not this time, this week, I did try and get Amanda to play Tainted Grail. And Tainted Grail does, I mean, as I said, Sleeping Gods is not easy, but Tainted Grail does feel like you're taking a kick in every single round.
Well, that's because you do. Once you get beyond about chapter 3 or 4, it does get a bit, I'm not going to say easier, but a bit more doable. Because of the stuff, you've leveled up a bit more, you've got a bit more resources, you've got a couple of bit more kit, so it does make it seem a bit more doable. Although I still need to go back to it. I think I'm on chapter 9 and I still haven't finished it.
That was a weird thing about Sleeping Gods, is I never felt we ever made our characters significantly better. I mean, I think we maybe had 1 or 2 characters with an upgrade or 2, and I think one guy eventually got a weapon. But really, we were playing with starter characters for all 3 acts, more or less. Mm-hmm. Now, that could have just been the way we played it or how our journey through it. But it felt the right amount of hard. Like, it was okay to die. And a few, like, towards the end, we were like, Steve and I had made the connection that, basically, the girls were flaking and wanted to go home. And we thought, we got to accelerate this. And I just turned to Steve, let's just break the ship. We had like 4 or 5 cards left in our event deck. And I said, we want to get to the end. Let's just break the ship. So off we did, and we just went reckless. We just started driving into all sorts of nonsense. Make sure we take as much... that damage the ship? That's the option we take. But that didn't feel like we were cheating. It just felt like we were trying... we wanted to fit into the time we had and things like that. And it made us go to the end of the game with maybe slightly weaker characters.
So you were exploring the game in a way that you just previously hadn't. By the sounds of it, everything you were always going to encounter a new part of the story, and you were playing it to explore that avenue of the story.
Because we thought we got what we needed to make an end game.
We thought we did.
Right? We were wrong, but we thought, and all that mattered is that we thought we had everything we needed for one of the good endings. All right? We were convinced of it. We thought, we've got enough stuff here. Let's get to the end, and then we'll wrap up nicely. Otherwise, we'd have had to park it kind of midway through an act, and then it would have been weeks till we got back to it. So we thought, no, let's get it to the end. We reckon we can win this. We were totally wrong. We got a bad middling ending, I suppose, actually, but it was a satisfying ending.
Yeah.
So it was really.
It does sound
really,
very,
really
very captivating. Well, that's just 2 really great games we've talked about, and they're not the hottest, they're not the newest games, but they're both bloody great.
Yeah.
I fully agree. Right then. Should we delve into the mailbag for a few minutes?
I think we should do a
Pop out
question
some
or
juicy
two.
questions.
Why the hell
Mr.
not?
Lewis, since you haven't talked about a game, we'd like to pick out a question for us.
So, Phil the Sheep says, Sulcan, we are aware of its work. How do you find playing it and managing your turns? Well and straightforward. We played it once on BGA and we enjoyed it, but bloody hell, we were glad of the undo option. When you're playing it physically, how do you manage the, that doesn't quite work, I'll have to try something else situation where you want to go back, where you do, and where would we do your turn differently? Yeah, that happens all the time, to be fair. You kind of go through and go, yeah, that doesn't right work, but it's not actually too bad because you can do each action in any order. As long as you're weird like me and you keep track of everything you've done in your head, rescinding the stuff isn't actually that hard. And to be honest, most of the time you're only really rescinding 1, 2, maybe 3 actions. One of them's like grabbing some resources. And one way I manage it actually is if you tip your worker over, so it fills the space between the 2 cog teeth, so it shows what blob you've taken. You leave that lying down, so it shows you what you've done. So if you want to rescind it, you can do it. It's dead easy.
Phil, I will let you into a little bit of an insight of what happens. So Andy does this. Then he rescinds it. Then he thinks about it. Then he does it again. And he finishes it. And we all go, Andy, are you happy? He goes, yes. And then the next person moves one pawn and Andy goes, shit! Because he realised he's done it wrong.
Yep. You're painting me in a very bad light, Mr. Tudor. But he's not wrong.
Reality, mate.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. But you haven't played a good Euro unless you go, shit, in the middle of someone's
Exactly,
turn.
yes. Don't worry, it happened with Merv the other night with Rory.
That's it. I was just thinking that I think it's a really interesting question. How do you do it in games generally where you've made a mistake? And like yesterday, one of the players had got some cards and he had got 2 cards where really he should only have had 1. And he noticed this and he was like, oh shit, I shouldn't have had this. But it was like 3 or 4 turns ago and we'd forgotten exactly, he'd paid a resource, and no one knew what it was. The card order was like, we couldn't remember what the card was. How do we go back? And it was that, I think we handled it really well, of go, well, we'll just give you a wild card resource and we'll put one of them back and we'll do it this way. But it would only take one person at the table to go, actually, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
So is this the old unwritten rules of sitting at a table together? Because you need that, because like some people go ape shit if you have to rescind your roll or rescind your move or anything like that. You know, they just wouldn't be happy about it. Whereas whenever we've played, I've never felt that we've had that kind of, you know, we might go on 2 or 3 goes like that, and we might go, oh well, we'll just do this like you did. We'll just do something to kind of make it right.
Like
you know,
adults.
give you a penalty and most of us are quite like, yeah, okay, well that seems fair.
Seems reasonable, but I think like
mistake.
Steve in last night's game of Merv got scuppered twice because of this, really, didn't you, Steve?
I remember the one time because
the card order,
yes,
which would then change what you were going to buy, and then later on we realised that you took the central action in Merv, and realised that wasn't actually an action. You could have done that as well as an action. So Steve actually only had 11 of the 12 possible actions. But but by the time we did that, it was like, well, that's just going to be the rule for the rest of the game.
I will say though, Sid, that me and Andy in particular have not been unsportsmanlike against one particular player, because there is an individual that me and Andy have played with several times who will try and rescind an action halfway through the other player's action, and we both go, no, hands off the chess piece, you can't do that.
Yep.
I think that's fair. I think once your turn is over, your turn's over.
Now, it could be that me and Andy are particularly rude in this circumstance because this individual always wins anyway. So we're a bit kind of like, no, we need an advantage.
Yes, we do. Well, I think it's okay to rescind your action as long as it hasn't affected somebody else's turn.
Yeah. And you go back as far as you can, I think, even as well. The thing it really pisses me off, it's to the point where an individual that does this, I refuse to play games with them any longer. Well, you'll be playing like a Euro game, and they've done this and this, and they'll do their turn really quickly because they've been thinking about it. But then they will forget to collect all the resource tokens because they were going so fast. It gets to the next player's turn, and they go, oh, I forgot to collect all of these things, and then just start grabbing tokens. I was like, no, you if you forgot to pick something up, if you forgot to score your points in your turn, but also I'm not monitoring you. You're just putting your greasy little hands into all these pots and all these cubes. I have no idea what you're doing.
I'm not going to lie, Alora has a habit of doing that sometimes. Like halfway through, someone's, it's the first thing. Oh, I should have had this. I should have had, really? Come on, no.
I forgot to get the coal and the steel and these 10 euros. What great, thanks a bunch.
You know, if it's like one thing, it's usually okay. But if it's like 15 like that and 27 points, then the answer is Foxtrot Oscar.
Yeah.
I've definitely found myself on a few occasions going, oh, do you know what? I ballsed up there. We just leave it and move on with it.
That's the thing. If you can't do anything about it, hard cheese.
Well, but also it's kind of if that becomes disruptive, you moving your rescinding a move backwards and all this kind of stuff, and it becomes disruptive to the game. Is that better or worse than just taking the hit? For making a mistake. I think it's an interesting argument. I think it depends on your table.
It's part of the board game kind of ethos, isn't it? Is that every player at the table is fallible. You know, like as we were saying with Merv yesterday, we all watched the video and every one of us forgot that rule.
Yes. All four of us forgot that rule.
All four of us forgot that rule, and it's just, we just forgot it, and it's a shame, and it's a pain in the ass, but it happened to Steve.
But
so
we all worked on that same rule, so it was...
Yeah.
I mean, I one thing that we've done, I've done before is that if someone has got a rule wrong, because it happens a lot, Steve and I have made many, many mistakes on rules before, what we'll try to do is, okay, we'll carry on playing until either the end of the game with the same rule, so everyone's got the same handicap or benefit, depending on what you've got with the mistake, or we get to a point where everyone's had the same level of handicap, and then we play the same rule after that. So, and as long as everyone agrees that
it's
seems
about
to be
keeping
a
it
reasonable way
as
forward.
even as possible.
Exactly,
if not fair. Yeah,
as even. Yeah, exactly. Which is, I think, the way to
The one time we didn't do that was Lost Ruins of Arnak, where we got the rules that wrong. We decided to start again.
Yes, it's terrible. In fact, actually, I was playing Great Western Trail this a few years ago now on Rich from our Worcester group. It was his 50th birthday, and we went away to this sort of do, and it was myself, Luke, and Dan, I think, and Darren. The four of us playing Great Western Trail. We had a 4-player game. We've all played Great Western Trail loads of times before. All of us. We know the game. It was one of these. You just sit down, you start playing. Brilliant. It doesn't happen very often. We love it. It's great. Right, we'll play. We all know the rules. Can't do that. What do you mean you can't do that? I've been playing that for years. Carry on. No, you can't do that. It's this rule. Oh, okay, carry on. Luke, no, you can't do that, Andy. What do you mean I can't do that? Seriously, all four of us got 4 different rules wrong to the point we had to start again. On a game we've played probably at least 5 to 10 times each. But the rule book to Great Western Trail is awful.
It's not laid out well, is it?
No.
I was thinking, Cookie, Mark Cook, asks, what is the most superfluous component in a game?
Which sounds like you are for a lot of these games, Rory.
That's harsh. I mean, I was going to pick you out, Andy, but you've picked the weakest member of the group.
Jesus, just because I'm the youngest. So,
yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm not bitter at all.
I think I know what the answer to this question is, though. I think this question has a genuine answer, and I think it is the zombie meeples from A Study in Emerald, 2nd edition.
Oh, bloody hell.
No, I can go one better than that.
Because the zombie meeples only appear in the game if one card is drawn and is played.
Oh, at least they have a use at that point.
They have. There's like a dozen of them, but it only comes out if one of 76 cards enters the game, and you only go through like a quarter of the deck in an average game, and then a player has to then play that card. It's something ridiculous like that to use these 12 models, these 12 little meeples.
That seems a bit
silly.
That's fairly superb. Now, to be fair, Grim Forest has a shower of meeples that you don't need at all.
A shower of meeples?
Yes, a shower, that's the collective term.
That's the collective term.
Yes. And it's the collective term for unnecessary miniatures. Because they add literally nothing to the game. They don't do anything. They don't symbolise. Because you have a card that symbolises the thing that they're supposed to symbolise. They're just there to look pretty. They serve no function at all other than to make the game 30 quid more expensive than it should be.
I also think it serves a purpose of you getting the boot in to Grim Forest for this
Again.
this year. Because I think you have to do it every year, don't you, Andy, really?
It serves as an example to others on how not to do it, is all I'm going to say. I mean, they were nice miniatures, I'm not going to lie, and I kind of regret selling them now because I want to paint them. But that's not the point. It's
I remember the glee on your
as
face when you sold that at the
it was
Bring It Back
amazing.
sale.
Shifted
you were
that,
practically
yeah.
skipping out the Games Expo when you sold that.
Thank Christ. Well, the thing is, it wasn't just because they were superfluous, it's the fact the game was wank as well. Although, to be fair, I remember, Steve, you warning me that I might not like it, so you were correct there.
Oh, I can't think of anything. I can't think. But to be fair, Andy wins, I think, with Green Forest because I don't remember they get the miniatures out. Andy go, you don't need them.
Not at all.
Well, I've got the Bad Wolf card. Can I not use the Bad Wolf miniature? Yes, here you go. Click. Oh, is that all it does?
Yep. It means nothing. They're just a waste of time.
Wasn't there a Kickstarter not so long ago? And it came with like a statue, like a 60 centimetre tall statue of Poseidon or something.
I wouldn't know. I didn't get it.
Sorry, is that salt in the wound?
You mean not Fate of Atlantis. No, is it Guards of... No, not Guards of Atlantis. That was that shit MOBA we played. It was by Eldorado Games. It's something to do with Atlantis, and it did have a Poseidon in the middle. But
that was just it was just
the
there.
default. The default one was a plastic one. I upgraded it to a metal one, which I paid some money for, which I never received. So I'm not sure if that's better or worse.
That's really superfluous. Doesn't even
Really,
exist.
it didn't even get made. I didn't receive the bloody thing.
So has that Kickstarter just gone poof then, is it?
Yes, that is basically Eldorado Games has gone down the Swanee, and their fulfillment company, which were called, what they called, some American mob, they basically decided we're not doing anything anymore, go away. So the whole thing has just... And I'm missing a few key components from the game, so I actually can't even play it. I know.
That was a shower of shite.
It is a shower of shite. I could possibly get someone to 3D print them, because they're just like a couple of little buildings, but each faction is asymmetric, so you need these things in order to play that faction. So I could play it as a 3-player, provided nobody played that one particular faction, but that's kind of rubbish.
Wow.
So yes, I can't even play the game properly. Yeah, I am unhappy, as are many people.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. I thought, Rory, you were talking about the two Simon games. There's like Cthulhu Death May Die and the Marvel Zombies Zombicide have both got like 3-foot tall miniatures. There's a 3-foot tall Cthulhu and a 3-foot tall
Of course, yeah.
Galactus. And the Galactus comes in multiple heads, so you can have normal or zombie Galactus. And that is not a miniature in the game, that is the board.
That is
Yes.
the board,
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
the board for that thing.
So it's not superfluous. It does actually have a use.
True.
I mean, it's ridiculous and over the top, but it does have a
Yes,
use.
true. I think that'll do us for today. So thank you very much for listening. We'll be back in a few weeks once these boys have been to Tabletop Scotland and can come back tell us about their adventures north of the wall. Until next time, give us a review.
There are many wild links in there.
I should be reverting to type.
Please give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. Or you can also find us on Facebook, X, Board Game Geeks Guild 2726. Just look for Polyhedron Collider. And until next time, happy gaming.
Ta-ra.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Now we can play Baldur's Gate 3.
I was wondering if you sat there itching to fire it up.